Hi people, it's me Anya. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to a new video. Today's video is a part 2 to my favorite middle grade historical fiction stories. I did a part 1 to this almost a year ago, so it's almost fitting that now I'm doing a part 2. And I'm really excited to get to these books because historical fiction is one of my favorite genres, so let's just get started. The first book on this list is called Planet Earth is Blue. This story follows Nova, who's eagerly anticipating the launch of the Challenger in 1983, and she's also a non-verbal autistic person. This book is so good. It's absolutely so incredible and so touching, and yes, I'm biased in really enjoying this book because I am also autistic. However, I'm not non-verbal the same way that she is, obviously. But anyway, this story is so good. It is so good and so wonderful and so lovely. The author does such a great job with crafting her world building and her characterization and the plot. Like, every single element of this story is so amazing and just so incredible. And initially when I was reading this book, I was unsure as to why the author decided to set this book in 1983 instead of in modern day. But as I continued reading, I completely understand her choice because the story is so incredible, and her choice of having the story set in 1983 was such a good choice for her. You know what I mean? Because this story is so emotionally touching and just so wonderful and so incredible. And I think the story is so important and so timely, and it does such a great job of representation, like I mentioned earlier. And I think it's one of those books that everybody should read, but especially for people who are not autistic as well, you know what I mean? Because Nova, the main character, is so wonderful and just so lovely, and the story is so incredible. So with that, I highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Full Cicada Moon. This story follows Mimi, who's half Japanese and half black, in 1969, and it's about fitting in and standing up for what's right. I think this story is absolutely so good because it's so tremendous. This author does such a great job crafting the world building, crafting the characterization. The plot is so intriguing. As a person who's also biracial like Mimi, because I'm also half Asian and half black, Mimi felt like such a relatable, realistic, three-dimensional character. I loved reading about her, and her perspective was so well done. This story is so well written, and I just really enjoyed it because the world building is so wonderful and spot on. The plot is so intriguing, and like I said before, the characterization is so good. This story is so good, and it's so underrated. And for what? I know I talked about this book pretty recently in my favorite black middle grade stories, but it's just so good. It deserves so much hype and so much more because every single element of the story is so incredible and so tremendous and terrific. You know what I mean? Essentially, this story is just so good, and it deserves so much more hype because it's absolutely so good, and there needs to be more biracial characters. You know what I mean? So yeah, we love to see it. This story is absolutely so incredible, and as a biracial person, like I said before, I really resonated with this main character, and that's part of the reason why I really loved it. But aside from that, I also really enjoyed the plot and the world building, so with that, I highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Echo Mountain. This story follows a young girl who's navigating the rocky terrain of her life during the Great Depression. This story is so good. I really enjoyed the writing, the world building, the characterization, the setting. You know what I mean? The plot was so intriguing. This book felt so well done and so well written. This author is so talented, and I would rather read more historical fiction by her because she did such a great job with this story because it felt so comforting and wholesome and just so well done. You know what I mean? After finishing this book, I wanted to reach through the pages of the story and give the main character a hug because she is so wonderful and so lovely, and I loved her development. You know what I mean? This story is so well done, and I really enjoyed it because it was just so good and was so lovely, and I just loved it, is basically what I'm trying to say. This book review is so redundant, but essentially I don't know how else to say that this book was so good. It was so lovely and so wonderful, and I just really enjoyed it. So with that, I would highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Trowbridge Road. This story follows a young girl in 1983 who's navigating heavy secrets as she navigates her mother who's refused to leave the house. So with that, there's a trigger warning for mental health. This story is so good. I really enjoy heavy-hitting middle grade stories that navigate like heavy-hitting subjects, as well as having a wholesome, lighthearted like storyline as well. You know what I mean? Because sometimes when I read stories that are too hard-hitting, they become really overwhelming and I can't really like emotionally handle them. You know what I mean? So I like that this story had a balance of like lighthearted, lovely moments as well that felt so like wholesome and nice. You know what I mean? Like the characterization in the story is so well done. The setting was so well crafted and so well written. I've never read anything before by this author, and now after this I will gladly read more by her because the story was so well done. I haven't read a whole lot of stories set during the beginning of the AIDS epidemic, so this book was also really insightful and like educational as well. You know what I mean? It was also just so good. This is a story that I will gladly reread because it was just so well done. It was so wonderful and like touching and just so lovely and just so good. You know what I mean? So with that, I would gladly highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called The Blackbird Girls. This story follows three perspectives, two of them during the Chernobyl disaster of 1986 and one of them during World War II as a Jew in 1941. The perspective in 1941 is the glamour of one of the girls in 1986. This story is so good. It's so insightful and well done and so educational. You know what I mean? I've never really learned much about the disaster in Chernobyl in 1986, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that word. I'm not really that familiar with Ukrainian words and like terminology and stuff like that. But anyway, this story is so well done and it's so clear that the author did her research because she is just so good at like crafting this world building and the setting and the plot and the characters and the characterization, and especially the friendship that developed between the two characters in 1986. I just really enjoyed it, and all three perspectives blended well so well. You know what I mean? Like each perspective added something new to the story. I was kind of afraid that the two perspectives set in the same timeline would blur together, but they didn't. Like each character was so distinct and stood on their own. You know what I mean? This story is so well done and I really enjoyed it because it was so insightful and so educational, but also so intriguing and entertaining as well. So with that, I highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Real Wolves. This story follows a young girl and her siblings as they struggle to survive when the Red Army marches into East Prussia at the end of World War II. This story is absolutely so good. It is so amazing and it's so incredible. And this book showed up on one of my favorite books of 2020 because it was absolutely so good. It was so insightful and so educational, and the story really talks about a rather forgotten, kind of unspoken about piece of history. You know what I mean? Like I had no idea what I was getting into when I started this book, and typically when I read historical fiction, since like historical fiction is so often about the same time periods, I normally know what to expect, but with this story I had no idea what to expect. And the story was so insightful and it was so educational, and it really like widened my perspective, you know what I mean? Because I know that there were so many other forgotten pieces of history that need to be written about and need to be like talked about, you know what I mean? This story is so good. It was so insightful and it was so educational, but it was also so thrilling and so wonderful too. You know, like it was so well done and I just really enjoyed it. And this book is so underrated, and for what? Because it's absolutely so good. It's absolutely so incredible and so amazing and so emotionally touching. You know what I mean? So with that, I would highly recommend it. The last book on this list, but certainly not the least, is Red, White, and Whole. This book follows a young Indian American girl whose life is turned upside down when her mother is diagnosed with leukemia, and it's set in the 1980s. This story is so good. It is so wholesome and well done and so lovely and wonderful. The writing is so lyrical. This author is so talented, and you can really tell that this story is own voices. You know what I mean? Because this book is so good. I just really enjoyed it because I really just fell in love with the writing and the plot and the setting and the world building and the characterization. Every single element of this story is absolutely so good. This book definitely deserves all of its hype and so much more because it's absolutely so good. I just really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad that I did. You know what I mean? This book definitely lived up to my higher expectations because it was absolutely so good. And you can tell that this story is own voices because the author's own experiences really shone through the story. You know what I mean? In the same way with the previous books where I can tell that the author did her research. With those books like the Blackbird Girls, for example, you can just really tell that this author is speaking from her own experiences because this story felt so real and realistic and the characters felt so three-dimensional and so well developed. This story is so well done. It is so lovely and it's so wonderful, and like I said, it really deserves all of its hype and so much more. So with that, I highly recommend it because it's just so good. So in conclusion, I really enjoyed making this video because, like I said at the beginning of this video, historical fiction is one of my favorite genres because I love learning new things. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please don't hesitate to give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below why you enjoyed it. If you made it this far in the video, comment down below the sun emoji. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!